Last year, I asked my 9-year-old daughter, Sasha, if she was worried about starting out at a new school in a new city. She said that no, she wasn't all that worried. What helps you not be worried, I asked. My charisma, she responded, not missing a beat. On the day she was born, I melted. My soul received her, and in a circular motion, she must have re-entered my body, landing softly inside my heart. On the day she was born, I became a mother to my daughter. I don't know if I would have survived without a daughter. When she was an infant, I dressed her in cozy, striped fleece jumpsuits. She was the size of a butternut squash, tucked snugly into the baby carrier, where I could keep her close and safe. This brought me a contentment that I had never known before. This feeling may have hearkened back to a far-off, distant physical memory, one in which I was intertwined inside my own mother's heart, before my sister was born and everything changed, and I was exiled behind the door with the muddled glass. I was sick with a cold and wasn't allowed in the room where my parents and new sister were enclosed. I pressed my nose up against the hazy glass to make out their shapes, huddled close together, gazing down at their new baby girl. When I was a young child, I was a ballet dancer, and there was not a shadow of a doubt in my mind that I would be a professional ballerina when I grew up. My identity was firmly rooted. No, it was entrenched in this conviction that had that immovable, self-willing energy that comes so naturally to children who have not yet suffered failure. I remember feeling relieved that I had my life figured out at the age of 11. I was truly one of the lucky ones, I thought, with a jump start on self-knowledge, bypassing any of the soul-searching that might befall others. But in time, at the age of 12, I found myself falling behind. My hips and knees weren't naturally turning out and opening up to create that perfect sharp line of beauty required for every Balanchine dancer. When Madame Tchaikovsky demonstrated sequences, my brain and body couldn't quite follow, and I became confused. I lost confidence. My heart sank. Shame set in. I wasn't measuring up. The final blow came when, during my 5th division end-of-year evaluation, my mother was told that I would be left back to repeat that year. She's young, she has time to work on her turnout, they told her. As my mother spoke, I could feel the blood draining from my body, beginning in my face, down my legs, with gravity and out of the soles of my feet. I felt lightheaded. The bright lights in the elevator seemed to turn all the air around us a thick white fog. A surreal feeling of impossibility washed over me. I bolted as soon as the elevator doors opened and ran home, throwing open the drawer where I kept my leotards and tights. Now my face was flushed with a toxic mixture of rage and shame. As I scooped up as many as I could carry and ran to the bathroom, I threw them all into the toilet bowl. The baby pink tights with a thick seam down the back leg, the maroon leotards that 5th Division girls all had to wear, as well as the single bright blue leotard that I would now never get to wear because of my bad hips and my weak knees. I can see my arm as though independent from my body, push hard on the flusher. I'm sure they didn't all go down. They just stayed stuck in that toilet bowl. My mother looking on helpless. She must have taken them out and cleaned up that mess. But the shame must have set in earlier. Flushing my ballet dreams down the toilet was the act of a child who had by then already lost trust in herself, somewhere much deeper and darker than a ballet class. When I think of the heaviness in which my childhood was shrouded, I think of my father. My father was a writer. He wrote plays, children's books, and at the end of his life, 3 books of poetry that I have yet to crack open. I worry that I'm not smart enough to engage with my father's work. That's how brilliant he was. And this brilliance wasn't family property. It was his alone. he was oblivious to my longing to be allowed into the sanctuary of his art. I longed to be initiated into his cryptic, exclusive world. I went out of my way to find an entry so that I could show up and say, "Here I am, I belong here too." I majored in drama at NYU's experimental theater wing, and in the process was looked down on by other powerful men of theater, all so that I could be deemed worthy, talented, special in my father's eyes. Maybe he would even let me be in one of his shows. After graduating from college, I was in fact allowed to join his ensemble of performers. We worked feverishly under his dictatorship on the 8-hour-long opera he had written about Herzl's vision for the state of Israel. I suppose that it was in the interest of integrity and for the sake of avoiding accusations of nepotism that he neglected to make space for me to shine in his production. It wasn't that I expected a starring role. After all, it was an ensemble piece. We would all have our moments. But I was never invited to turn my chair to the audience, like the other actresses, and speak my stream of consciousness with the audience's undivided attention on me. At the same time, he had me undress on stage for the sake of art and sit on a chair with a life-size powder blue gift bow across my chest as my only form of covering. His artistic integrity, forever beyond reproach, I obeyed, looked at but unseen, exactly like the seated young naked women surrounded by upright men in dark suits in the surrealist painting that had ignited my father's imagination. As a child, as a young adult, I breathed in the stifling air of judgment, of impossible standards. How could I possibly measure up if everyone he knew was a moron? If he had no worthy peer in all of the land and nobody understood the rarefied air of his artistry? When my father wasn't scribbling in pencil in his den with built-in floor-to-ceiling bookshelves crammed to the gills, he would roam around outside, delicately feeling with his pale fingers the leaves of the various fruit trees that grew in our backyard. Could be that he was assessing their vitality or making some feeble, unconscious attempt at an unmediated connection with a living thing. My father nurtured those avocado and mango trees, watering them endlessly with a long green hose that stretched across the prickly grass. It must have been his meditation to water those trees. Maybe his whole life was a sort of meditation. The subject of his reflection, I would probably never know, unless I managed one day to read through those books he left behind. My son, Leo, is so much like me. At 12, I look at him and see the dark seeds of self-doubt and disquiet that will need so much watering to thrive. A strong, tall, beautiful boy who doesn't yet embody his own power. But my daughter, Sasha, she is now the age of my ballerina self before my fall. No longer tucked into my chest, she has not turned into the mommy's girl I might have expected. Fiercely independent and self-assured, basking in the glow of abundant charisma, she's the most confident person I have ever met. She knows in every single cell of her being that she is the fragrant flower blossom on the sweetest fruit tree. Her heart-shaped face, with those big blue expressive eyes and the pointy chin, pierces my heart anew each day. She is out there, pollinating the world with her beauty, and at the same time, she's inside my heart, pumping that cellular experience of self-power ever so slowly into my veins.